All right, what is up, Utah fans? This is Joseph back with the Utah Utes Football Digest, and Utah just put the smackdown on Southern Utah University. We all expected Utah to win, but I think the game went significantly better than the general expectation would be. You thought we'd have a big win, but I think some of the things we saw tonight really have me optimistic for the season. Are there some things I want to point out as a critique that we could have done better? Yeah, absolutely. But overall, I mean, damn, our team looked awesome. I'm excited. We're going to break down every position group, talk about how they look tonight, talk about some of the injuries as well. Should be a great time. Before we dive into it, guys, smash the like button. That'll help get it out to more Utah fans. Also, comment down below. I want to hear what you guys thought about the game. Do you agree with my take on each position group? What did you see that maybe I missed, or anything I'm pointing out that you didn't notice while you were watching? And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. We put out a ton of Utah Utes football content. Let's go ahead and dive in and go Utes. The number one position group to talk about is going to be the quarterbacks, guys. Quarterback was awesome to watch tonight. There was a lot of storylines going on. You start with Cam Rising, 250 plus yards, 5 touchdowns, looked awesome. I mean, we it is an FCS team, but you did have this feeling in your mind like, hey, how will he look tonight, right? I think we all didn't in the game again when we did the spring game. It wasn't live action, right? No one's really hitting Cam. Like Whittingham would have got you off the team if you hit Cam during the spring game. But in this game, it was like, hey, guys are going to get to hit him. What's he going to look like? And I can't imagine asking for a better performance than what we saw. I'd say that was A plus through the roof. Cam looked awesome. Like I said, 250 plus yards, 5 touchdowns, and I feel extremely confident that Cam is going to be the guy to lead us to a super, super successful year. Doesn't get much better. I mean, some of the throws were pretty open, but that's being nitpicky. I mean, he was just slicing and dicing these defenses apart. In an FCS game, I would have liked to see him slide more, right? There's some hits he took that felt unnecessary, but overall, just such a good game by freaking Cam Rising, dude. Um, then we have a little bit of a different story with Isaac Wilson. Isaac Wilson, I think the stats are going to show that the stats will make it look worse than it was. I definitely thought when, the first 5 plays were kind of concerning and he had some interceptions. Like, I'm not going to act like he had a good performance because the bad was really bad, but I do think we saw him piece together some drives, look good, get it done, and just kind of, we got to see that he can work the offense. I would say, though, this whole throwing a random bad throw that doesn't make a lot of sense, trying to force something, is starting to become a bit of a trend. I think the first interception he threw in the game against SUU was his hand got hit, and that's why it was such a bad throw. But that second one was just another forced pass, just like in the spring game where he threw a forced pass that didn't make a lot of sense. A definite up and down game for Isaac Wilson. I'd say overall not a good game, right? You'd want to see more from him. But we did see him string together some drives, and he does look like he can lead an offense, right? Once you round out those rough edges. Now, can you get him to stop making these decisions where he's throwing the ball downfield into lots of coverage? That is to be seen. I'll say this. I feel awesome about Cam Rising, and we'll go over all the other position groups. There's guys that I was neutral on that I feel awesome about this year, and I feel great. I do not feel super confident right now if Cam were to get hurt, God forbid, obviously. But if Cam were to go down, I don't feel great about the backup quarterback situation. And I'm just being honest about that. Hopefully Isaac Wilson can work some of this stuff out, but I did not like what I saw when you consider that he's next up if Cam goes down. But that's a quarterback position, a lot of good, and Cam looked freaking awesome. Now let's talk about the running backs and the guy that really stole the show tonight. I'm sure everyone knows who it is before I even say the name, is Dijon Stanley. This guy had quite the freaking day. Really, really tore it up all night, right? Towards the end of the game, it was more rushing plays for him where he started looking good. But really had quite the game, guys. I was very, very impressed with Dijon Stanley. Um, Basically, if you weren't watching the game, Cam hit him twice on this wheel route for 60 plus yards for a touchdown. And I mean, it felt like we were watching Dijon Stanley's coming out party, and he had quite a bit of rushing yards as well. I couldn't be more impressed with the guy. I'm very excited about his future. Before this game, I was kind of feeling like he was getting lost in the mix, and it almost feels like he was a secret weapon they were hiding for this season, and they didn't tell anyone about, because all I've heard all offseason is Mike Mitchell and Mekhi Bernard, and then Dijon Stanley comes out there and looks like he's going to be, a firecracker this year. He looked awesome. I was super impressed. Dijon Stanley, obviously super, super fast. And a guy, if you're a fan of this channel, you've been aware of for a while. But just a great night from him. Mekhi Bernard looked very good as well. Less action for Mekhi Bernard, right? Not a ton of plays and not a crazy stat line, but a good average yards per carry. I was impressed with what Mekhi Bernard did when he got plays. There was very little bad plays by Mekhi Bernard, and it did feel like when he got the ball, he was getting something done with it. Mike Mitchell had a pretty good night. A low average per carry, but there was a few explosive carries in there, and he had a touchdown. So a nice night overall for Mike Mitchell. I do think you would have liked to see a little more. Same with Jalen Glover. Started out pretty nice. I think what we're dealing with here, guys, is a really crowded running back room, and it's going to be tough for someone to really take over this room. It's a lot of talent, but I think it's a really good thing for us as Utah fans. The negative could be it's going to be tough for someone to really get a ton of carries and, kind of get the ball rolling and get that momentum. Looks like a really good group either way. I don't want to spend too much time nitpicking, but I liked a lot of what we saw, guys. And I think the running back room looks very good. Again, Dijon Stanley stole the show, but the running back room looked really good in my opinion. Now let's talk about wide receivers. Wide receivers tonight, I thought Dorian Singer impressed. Only a couple catches, but on those catches, he only got so many reps, and he looked good when Cam did target him. I think that's another game where he seems to be Cam's favorite targeted receiver, which is a good sign for us. Also, a guy, Dadron Zipper, looked really good when he was in, had a couple nice catches, broke a couple tackles, some nice yak after the catch. I thought it looked pretty good there. No one else really wide receiver wise really stood out to me in this game. I don't know if anyone else stood out to you guys. We'll talk about the tight ends real quick as well. That was a wildly good group. Tight end, obviously Brant Keithy stole the show, right? 3 touchdowns, almost 70 yards receiving, looked awesome. And it was such a delight to see him Cam connecting with him the way they did tonight. It felt like I was in a time machine to 2022, early 2022, and the world was ahead of us. And to see that back just makes me super optimistic for this year and super excited. Brant Keithy definitely stole the show in the tight end room. Caleb Lohner looked really physical, really strong, like a good receiving weapon. I was pretty impressed there. Outside of that, at tight end, I don't think I really saw anything that I would make a comment about, but I did see a real physical group of tight ends that looked good, right? The run blocking looked solid. I just think outside of those two, there's not too many names to mention. But that's the wide receivers and tight ends. Brant Keithy looked awesome. Caleb Lohner looked good. Dorian Singer, Dadron Zipper. There's a lot of talent out there. But Brant Keithy is really the only one that really shined tonight, in my opinion. Okay, the final group on the offense we're going to chat about is going to be the offensive line. I was very impressed with the offensive line. I would love to know what everyone else saw, but I saw a dominant performance. I mean, sure, there was a couple blown blocks where they got back there to the QB, but in general, it'd be like 4 good downs to 1 bad down, which is a real good ratio for offensive line. I thought pass blocking looked good, but run blocking looked quite dominant in a lot of situations. It looked like we were really moving people off the ball. Again, this is an FCS defensive line in Southern Utah, but I was very, very impressed with the offensive line. And if you're fans of this channel and follow it a lot, you guys know I've been extremely critical of the offensive line at times in the past. I think if that's what we're seeing game one right out the gate, and we improve from here, that's a very promising starting point. So I was really impressed with the offensive line. I thought good pass block, really good run block, and very excited to see what that group does as we keep going on the year. Okay, guys, and now we're moving on to the defense. We're going to start with the defensive line. Unfortunately, during the game, Aliki Vamahi did get injured. It didn't look good. It didn't look as bad as one of the other injuries, which I'll touch on here in a little bit, but I could see it being for a few weeks, but hopefully he can come back. If we have an update at the time I'm releasing this video, just drop it in the comments. So sad to see that. He's a really good player and a guy I was excited about this year. So hopefully he's back pretty quick. Let's talk about the D-line, though, that, outside of the injury, I thought it looked really good. Like, I thought as a whole, they played really well. Van Fillinger was pretty dominant, a couple tackles for loss, pass deflection. And, he's a guy that we keep waiting for him to kind of come on. I think tonight was a really good flash that, hey, is this the year that we could see Van Fillinger kind of break out of his shell and become an impact player? I mean, Jonah Ellis did it last year, and it feels like after tonight, I wouldn't be shocked to see Van Fillinger come out of his shell. Connor O'Toole looked good as well. He had half a sack, half a tackle for a loss. Didn't look bad. Logan Fano, I feel like he had the half a sack, right? Let me see here. Why can't I find him here? Oh, Logan Fano. Yeah, he did have half a sack. But outside of that, I didn't really see him much, so I couldn't tell you how great of a game he had or didn't have. But still a guy I'm excited about on the year. I think the D-line group as a whole looked really good. Again, at the defensive interior, Keanu Tanuvasa looked very, very good. I was impressed with him. He had 4 tackles, 2 of them solo tackles. I thought he looked really good and definitely had more pressure on top of those stats as well. I thought he looked very good. So good-looking group in the defensive line. Those 3 I thought stood out more than anyone else: Connor O'Toole, Van Fillinger, and Keanu Tanuvasa. I do think one thing that tends to happen with Utah early in the year, that it always takes us a few games to get right, is the edge rushers containing the outside, right? So when an edge rusher is playing, one of their jobs is to make sure that players, quarterbacks specifically scrambling, do not get outside of them, but on run plays as well, they don't get outside of you. And I did not think most of the game we did a great job of that, especially against a team where we have, a significant talent advantage. So I would like to see us clean that up, but almost every year that tends to happen for the first few games for us. But it would be nice. The schedule gets tough pretty quickly. From here out, it has a bit of a ramp up period, but then it kind of takes off. So hopefully we can get that cleaned up at least before Oklahoma State, and, hopefully right away. And I'm guessing the coaches noticed that as well. But outside of that, I thought the D-line room looked like a great group. Let's just get that containment a little tighter and, move forward from there. Okay, guys, and next up, we've got the linebacker group: Lander Barton, Karine Reed, and Sione Fotu. Obviously, some other linebackers got in later in the game and got some decent reps. But talking about those guys, I actually thought Sione Fotu, who's kind of, not that he's a weak link, but of the 3 linebackers, he's kind of the one you're most concerned about heading into the year. He's the one filling in for Lavani Damuni. And I thought he looked pretty good. I saw a couple open field tackles he made. Looked really solid. Like I said, a couple open field tackles. Lander Barton made a really big hit. It's not looking like it counted as a tackle for a loss, but it was like right at the line. And I actually thought it was a tackle for a loss. I thought that was a really nice play by Lander Barton. Looked very dominant, very strong. Karine Reed, I don't think he made a bunch of plays, but he was flying around the field all night, and I thought he looked, fairly good. And I also think once those guys were out and the backups were in, it didn't feel like a crazy drop off. So I think that's a pretty good sign, right? Jonathan Hall had a couple tackles. Josh Calvert had a couple tackles. The group looked, pretty good to me. So I'd say linebacker room didn't really stand out to me anything significant, but they did look like a good group. So that's the linebackers. All right, guys. And finally, let's talk about the DBs. So, the DBs, we had a bunch of really good performances. And I think the one that really stood out to me, there's a couple good ones, but Smith Snowden, right? Really nice tackle for a loss where he really cracked the dude. And then he had another tackle for a loss after that. 2 tackles for a loss in the night, 4 total tackles. Looked great in coverage. Looks like a guy that I am excited to have starting every play. Really looked awesome, right? Seriously, just I won't touch on him too much, but I was very impressed with Smith Snowden tonight, and I think we are going to see a big season from that kid. Unfortunately, Keenan Johnson got injured tonight. Now, he was one of our starting outside corners, which is a huge injury, right? He's a really good player. I've been speaking his praises for a while now, and I am, kind of bummed to hear that he's injured. That's a tough one. And the injury looked bad, right? The reporters say he wasn't putting any weight on his leg. And then on top of that, he was seen leaving the medical tent, screaming in what sounded like, the way they were describing it, like frustration, as if he was informed that this is probably a very serious injury. So I think we're at a point where hopefully he comes back, but from what that sounds like, I doubt we're going to see him back this year. Hopefully he is back. I'm not saying I have any, real knowledge of the situation, but that sucks, man. Real good guy, and you don't want to see that happen, but it happened. It is what it is. We move forward. Now, in the cornerback rotation, as he got injured, we got to see Elijah Davis come in and actually have quite a game here. Elijah Davis looked pretty good. He had an interception on the day. Really nice interception too. Not like a gimme. He had to go in there and snag it out, and had a tackle as well. I thought in general he held his own, right? I didn't think he ever looked bad, and I thought that was a good sign, right? I thought Elijah Davis held his own while he was out there. I felt like with Smith Snowden, Elijah Davis, and Zamiah Vaughn, it wasn't a bad group, and we could compete with a lot of Big 12 receiving corps, right? So I think we're fine there. Speaking of Zamiah Vaughn, really good day. Even when they did get a throw in on him, it felt like his coverage was airtight, and I do expect him to have a big year. Another physical guy. If you're not familiar with Zamiah Vaughn, check him out. He is one of the best corners in college football. He's an awesome corner for Utah. So I thought the DB room looked great, at least at corner. I didn't think the safeties looked bad. I saw a lot of Teo Johnson. I saw a lot of Lucky Gilman, and I saw a lot of Nate Ritchie. It seemed like there was a significant rotation of those three kind of going in and out. And I think that's kind of what we talked about heading into this game, that we would see that, right? We would see all 3 of them on the field at different times. I don't think any of them looked super impressive, but I don't think any of them looked bad either. I saw Teo Johnson miss a tackle on the sideline, but he was kind of going for a big hit when it was a sideline play, and he had a lot of backup, so I won't hold that against him. I just don't think the safety room, anyone really stood out to me or looked super impressive. So that's that. That's the DBs for Utah. Okay, guys. So that was the breakdown of the SUU game. I know I was critical at times, but there was a lot of praise in there too, right? Overall, it was an awesome performance. Like I mentioned, I don't think you can expect much more out of the team. Really, really good performance. And it has me super optimistic as we head into the year. We're going to be putting out a ton of content, guys, as we head into the season. As we're in the season now, baby. This is the first real day of college football, especially for Utah fans. And so it's going to be a wild ride from here on out. Every week that Utah is a game, we do breakdowns, we do analysis. It's a ton of fun. And if you want to be informed going into each and every game, I do believe this is an awesome channel to subscribe to. So make sure you do subscribe if you haven't already. Also, please like the video. That'll help get it out to more Utah fans. And I do want to know what you think, right? This is me watching the game live, so I haven't gone back and watched the tape. So if you guys have any opinions on what was going on out there, something I missed, good performances I missed, bad performances I've missed, I'd love to know what you guys think. Outside of that, I am out of here, and go Utes.